The road was open. Big Sal Oren knew it before he looked at the markers. The pull behind his ribs had changed half a breath earlier, the deep instinctive loosening every Salyuk felt when the western tide released its grip on the Nacre Steppe. Beneath the caravan platform, pale mineral crust stopped trembling. The thin standing water along the ruts flattened. Somewhere far below the surface, two moons were moving into a geometry Big Sal had trusted since childhood. His body said the crossing was safe. The empty road said otherwise. Big Sal stood on the forward rail of the crawler and stared across 40 kilometers of silver-white flats. No merchant trains. No ore sled. No pilgrim carts. No courier skiffs cutting diagonally toward the next island of black stone. Nothing. Behind him, Mavic Droon climbed out of the command cabin. Why have we stopped? Big Sal pointed toward the route posts. Each narrow pole carried a strip of blue reflective cloth. During an open phase, the cloth should have been raised horizontally. It was. The road is open, Mavic said. Oh yes. Then move. Big Sal did not. Something about the emptiness bothered him. Trade roads on the Nacre Steppe did not become empty without reason. During an open phase, caravans crowded one another for position. Miners cursed couriers. Couriers cut ahead of pilgrims. Vendors followed everyone. The steppe was dangerous enough that safe ground was never wasted. Yet the road ahead looked abandoned. Mavic leaned closer. You are being paid for routes, Big Sal. Big Sal looked at him. And you are being paid for cargo. Mavic smiled. It was the wrong smile. Big Sal had worked for smugglers before. Smugglers lied about machinery, minerals, medicines, even refugees. He had learned not to ask questions that reduced his willingness to finish a contract. But this job had felt wrong from the beginning. The vehicle behind them was not a freight carrier. It was a passenger crawler with its windows sealed from the outside. Mavic had ordered Big Sal not to open it. Then something struck the inner wall. Once, twice, a smaller sound followed. Crying, Big Sal turned. Mavic's smile vanished. Drive. Big Sal walked toward the rear crawler instead. Big Sal. He reached the door. A heavy lock had been welded over the normal latch. He looked at Mavic. What is inside? Leverage. The crying continued. Big Sal's fingers tightened around the rail. Open it. No. Big Sal faced him fully. The other crew members had begun watching. Mavic was not large for a Droon, but he carried authority like a blade. He had spent years turning hunger, debt, border disputes, and private fear into profit. He knew exactly how much danger another person would accept before refusing him. Usually. Open it, Big Sal repeated. Mavic studied his face, then shrugged. He tapped the release pad. The door lifted. Big Sal forgot about the empty road. Human children sat inside. A small school group packed onto benches meant for adult traders. Their bags were gone. Their wrist communicators were gone. One child had a scrape across his cheek. Another had been crying hard enough that her face was swollen. An older girl wearing a green jacket sat with one hand locked around the sleeve of a much younger boy. None of them spoke. They simply watched the doorway. Big Sal had seen humans before. Most aliens on the steppe had. Humans had arrived in the region only recently, buying minerals, selling agricultural tools, arguing cheerfully over food, and treating every new species as if introductions were the beginning of a conversation rather than the end of one. Big Sal had never seen human children. They seemed terribly small. Mavic rested one hand on the door frame. They are unharmed. You kidnapped them. I acquired negotiating assets. The girl in the green jacket flinched at his voice. Big Sal noticed. So did Mavic. He did not care. Their settlement controls access to several human trade contracts, Mavic continued. Their people will pay. Once they do, the children go home. You told me this was extraction work. It is. You said the passengers wanted discreet transport. They will eventually. Big Sal stared at him. Mavic lowered his voice. You were hired to get us to Glassmith before the eastern tide turns. That remains your job. From inside the crawler, the younger boy whispered something. Big Sal could not hear it. The older girl answered him. We stay together. Her voice shook, but she said it again. We stay together. Mavic closed the door. The lock engaged. Big Sal stood motionless. Then the pull behind his ribs shifted again. The road was still open. The step was telling him to move. He looked toward the empty crossing. For the first time in his life, Big Sal wondered whether the ground knew less than the people standing on it. They drove. Less than an hour later, they found the first explanation. A caravan master had parked 3 ore haulers sideways across the junction ahead. Big Sal slowed. Mavic cursed. What is this? The caravan master climbed down before they reached him. He was Kelvar, broad-backed and yellow-eyed, wearing the layered dust cloth of the western settlements. Big Sal knew him. They had traded route forecasts for years. Kelvar raised one hand. Take the southern branch. The southern branch adds half a day, Big Sal said. Oh yes. Why is this road closed? It isn't. Big Sal looked at the ore haulers. Kelvar followed his gaze. I am using it. For what? Waitings. Mavic pushed open the side window. For whom? Kelvar's eyes moved to him. Then to the sealed passenger crawler. The pause lasted only a fraction too long. Big Sal felt it. Mavic did too. Kelvar said friends. Mavic's hand disappeared beneath his coat. Big Sal spoke quickly. We'll take the south road. He turned the crawler before Mavic could object. Only when the haulers disappeared behind them did Mavic lean forward. He knew. Big Sal kept his eyes on the flats. Knew what? Mavic struck the dashboard. Do not become stupid because you dislike the cargo. Big Sal said nothing. Mavic activated a handheld scanner. No transmissions from us, no tracking signature, no pursuit beacon. He looked back toward the sealed crawler. They cannot know where we are. Big Sal considered Kelvar's face. No, he said. But the road ahead suddenly felt less open. At the next mineral island, they stopped for coolant. The mechanic refused them. Not politely. Not aggressively. She simply folded her forearms and said her tanks were empty. Big Sal could see coolant drums stacked behind her. Mavic saw them too. You have enough to service 50 crawlers. Reserved. For whom? Customers. We are customers. Not today. Mavic stepped closer. The mechanic did not move. Big Sal noticed a scrap of printed paper taped beside the workshop door. Human faces. Children. Several of them. The image quality was poor, copied from another copy. But he recognized the green jacket. Mavic saw where he was looking. He ripped the page from the wall. The mechanic's expression hardened. Where did you get this? She pointed toward the eastern road. A human freight cook. A what? Cook? Mavic stared at her. The mechanic shrugged. She asked whether anyone had seen these children. Where is she now? Gone. With whom? I don't know. Who sent her? I don't know. Mavic crumpled the paper. You closed your tanks because a cook asked you questions. No. The mechanic looked toward the sealed passenger crawler. I closed my tanks because you asked me questions badly. Big Sal almost laughed. Mavic did not. They left without coolant. By the next crossing, Mavic had stopped pretending he was calm. He ordered the crew to change their identification plates. They traded their outer crawler shell to a livestock merchant. They covered the passenger compartment with woven heat cloths. Big Sal rerouted them through salt reeds, where the ground rose in narrow ribs above shallow tidal pools. None of it helped. At a supply post, a human pilot stood beside an alien merchant showing him another copy of the children's faces. At a ferry queue, a vendor asked whether anyone had seen a transport with sealed passenger windows. At a roadside shelter, Big Sal found a description of their original crawler scratched onto a public message board. No reward was listed. No military authority was named. No threat was written underneath. Only a request. Missing human children. Please check transport holds, unused rooms, private passenger compartments, and any vehicle traveling under changed registration. Pass this onward. Big Sal read the final line twice. Pass this onward. Mavic tore the notice down. 10 minutes later they found another. Different handwriting. Same information. At the next island another. This one contained an additional detail. One child had a healing scrape on his left cheek. Someone had updated the description. Big Sal looked toward the sealed crawler. The boy inside had that scrape. Mavic ordered everyone back into the vehicles. They drove until the sky became copper. When they finally stopped in a dry basin between two limestone ridges, Mavic gathered the crew around Big Sal's route table. There is a transmitter. Big Sal looked up. Where? On the children. We searched them. Search again. The children were brought outside. They stood together beneath the lowering sun. The youngest boy had stopped crying. The girl in the green jacket still held his sleeve. Mavic's people searched every seam of their clothing. Shoes, jackets, hair, even the hems of their shirts. Nothing. Mavic scanned them personally. Nothing. He turned on Big Sal. The crawler. Claims. The route system. Closed. Our registrations. Changed. Mavic's voice sharpened. Then how are they following us? One of the children looked up. A thin boy with dark curls. They aren't. Everyone turned toward him. Mavic stepped closer. What did you say? The boy swallowed. Big Sal could see fear in his face. Real fear. Not human bravado. Not some legendary Death World confidence. Just a child who knew the adult in front of him was dangerous. Still, he answered. They aren't following us. Mavic crouched. Then explained the notices. The boy shook his head. I don't know. Mavic leaned closer. Big Sal moved before thinking. One step. Enough that Mavic noticed. Mavic stood again. The boy hurried backward toward the others. The girl in green pulled him close. Then she looked at Big Sal. Does somebody know? The question landed differently than Big Sal expected. She was not asking whether rescue ships were coming. She was not asking whether soldiers had found them. She was asking something simpler. Does somebody know? Big Sal looked toward Mavic. He should have said nothing. Instead he said yes. The change among the children was tiny. No cheering. No smiles. The girl simply closed her eyes for a moment. The youngest boy leaned against her. Someone behind them whispered, okay. Big Sal felt something tighten in his chest. Mavic heard it too. What does that mean? The green-jacketed girl opened her eyes. It means they know we're missing. So, she looked at him as though she genuinely did not understand the question. So they'll keep looking. Mavic laughed. Big Sal did not. That night while the crew slept in shifts, Big Sal accessed the intercepted traffic. Mavic had been right about one thing. There should have been a source. Every organized search Big Sal had ever known had one. Security office. Military command. Guild authority. Family house. A central transmitter issued instructions, others obeyed. Find the center and you understood the operation. Destroy the center and the operation weakened. Big Sal searched for the human center. He found a teacher asking dockworkers to check unused compartments. He found a cargo pilot forwarding descriptions to 3 fuel stations because he had flown through the region earlier. He found a merchant who had never met the children asking another merchant to look at passenger manifests. He found a human cook sending the notice to an alien baker because the baker's cousin managed a ferry. He found an agricultural worker asking a mineral hauler whether any unfamiliar vehicles had crossed his district. He found an old message from someone named Imani Cross. Her voice was strained but steady. These children failed to arrive at the exchange stop, We don't know where they are yet. If you can safely check somewhere nearby, please do. If you learn anything, pass it onward. Do not put yourself in danger. We need information first. Big Sal replayed it. No orders. No threats. No promise of payment. He searched the network for messages from a Manny Cross directing the search. There were almost none. Instead, he found copies. Modified copies. Shorter versions. Translated versions. Handwritten versions. People had carried the information beyond her reach. Humans who had never spoken to her were checking roads she had probably never heard of. Aliens who had never seen a human child were refusing suspicious cargo because a human customer had once been kind to them. A trader had delayed his own departure to inspect an abandoned storage shed. A ferry operator had reopened a vehicle registry she had already closed for the day. A mechanic had lied about having coolant. Kelvar had blocked a road. None of them had been commanded. Big Sal stared at the route map. Mavic was trying to escape a pursuit. There was no pursuit. That was the problem. A pursuit had direction. This had spread. Big Sal began marking every place where the children's description had appeared. The marks formed no line. No arc. No converging spear. They appeared ahead. Behind. Beside. Across routes Mavic had never planned to use. Big Sal felt the tidal pull inside his body. The natural crossings of the steppe remained exactly where they had always been. Yet the usable world around them was shrinking. He finally understood. Humans were not sending people after the children. They were making the children impossible to overlook. By morning, Mavic had reached the same evidence and drawn the wrong conclusion. We go silent. We are already silent, Big Sal said. Completely silent, no public roads, no registered fuel, no trade posts. That leaves the Red Basin. Then we take the Red Basin. Big Sal looked at him. The tide there turns unpredictably. You are a route quartermaster. I am not a magician. Mavic leaned across the map. You will get us through. Maybe. Big Sal felt every member of the crew listening. If the southern pole rises early, the crust fractures, the crawler sinks. How long? Fast enough that opening the doors won't matter. The crew shifted uneasily. Mavic pointed toward Glassmith. We reached the launch field today. Nobody answered. They entered the Red Basin. For several hours, nothing went wrong. That almost made it worse. The flats stretched around them like polished bone. Heat shimmered above shallow water. Far to the east, the launch towers of Glassmith appeared as black needles against the horizon. Freedom, Mavic called it. Big Sal felt no such thing. His body sensed the moon's shifting. The safe interval was narrowing. Then they found a human standing beside a broken cargo skiff. One human. No weapons. No uniforms. A middle-aged man with grease on both hands. Mavic ordered the convoy to keep moving. As they passed, the human looked up. His eyes moved across the first crawler. Then Big Sal. Then the covered passenger vehicle. He did nothing. No signal. No heroic attempt to stop them. He simply watched. 10 minutes later, Big Sal's receiver detected a low-power burst. A private message. Vehicle group crossing Red Basin. One passenger crawler covered despite heat. Heading Glassmith. Check if relevant. Mavic saw it. His face changed. He grabbed Big Sal's receiver and smashed it against the console. There. Plastic fragments scattered across the floor. No more network. Big Sal stared at the broken receiver. Then at the road ahead. He almost felt sorry for Mavic. You still think the network is inside the machine. Mavic turned slowly. What? Big Sal said nothing else. Glassmith refused them landing access. Mavic tried another identity. Refused. He offered cash. Refused. He threatened the launch clerk. The clerk disconnected. Mavic contacted a private ship captain he had used before. The captain listened to his request, then said, "Send me your passenger manifest." Mavic terminated the call. The crew grew quieter. Big Sal watched their fear change shape. At first they had feared human retaliation. Now they feared something more practical. No fuel, no launch, no buyers, no anonymous repairs, no clean transfer, no road where someone had not heard something. Kidnapping had become bad business. That afternoon, Big Sal saw the final route. A narrow western crossing toward an illegal field beyond Glassmith. Physically open, socially untouched. Exactly the kind of route Mavic needed. Big Sal marked it. Then he did something he had never done in all his years guiding contraband. He lied about the tides. "Western route closes soon," he said. Mavic studied the map. "How soon?" "Soon enough that we need confirmation from the route post." Mavic swore. "Do it." Big Sal opened the route system. The message he sent looked ordinary. "Western crossing, passenger crawler, human children alive confirmed." No play, no explanation, no destination. He placed it into the route status stream and closed the terminal. For several seconds nothing happened. Then a merchant on the far side acknowledged receipt. Then a mineral haulers. Then a human cargo ship waiting at Glassmith. Then a ferry. Then another route post. Big Sal watched the acknowledgements multiply. Mavic stepped behind him. "What did you do?" Big Sal turned. For once he did not feel the need to lie. "I told them where the children are." Mavic hit him. Big Sal fell against the console. The crew froze. Mavic drew his pistol. "You sold us." Big Sal tasted blood. "No, you sent our position." "Oh yes." Mavic aimed the weapon at his chest. "Why?" Big Sal looked past him toward the passenger crawler. The green-jacketed girl was visible through a gap in the heat cloth. "Watching, because I finally understood who was coming." Mavic's mouth twisted. "And?" Big Sal stood carefully. "There isn't one." Mavic stared at him. Big Sal continued. "You keep trying to defeat the person searching for them. There is no person." The pistol remained steady. "There are parents." "Oh yes." "Security." "Probably." "Human authorities." "Eventually." Mavic's jaw tightened. "Then who is blocking us?" Big Sal looked toward the open western road. "Whoever heard." The convoy moved anyway. Mavic forced it. He still believed speed could restore control. When they reached the western crossing, the road was physically perfect. Big Sal's body knew it. His breathing eased automatically. The tidal pull aligned. Safe ground stretched all the way to the far ridge. And people stood on it. Not soldiers. People. A fuel hauler parked across one side. 2 merchant crawlers occupied another. Several local workers stood near their vehicles. A human cook Big Sal recognized from a transmitted image was there, still wearing a stained white work jacket. The mechanic who had refused them coolant stood beside her. Kelvar had arrived from the north. The greasy-handed human from the red basin lined against his repaired skiff. Nobody carried a visible heavy weapon. Nobody approached. They had simply stopped using the road. Mavic opened the external speaker. "Move." Nobody moved. "This crossing is public." Kelvar answered. "So use it." Mavic stared at the vehicles. "You are blocking it." "No." Kelvar gestured toward the open ground beyond the parked machines. There was technically enough space for Mavic's convoy to squeeze through. Barely. If Big Sal guided it perfectly. Mavic looked at him. "Do it." Big Sal examined the road. Then shook his head. "Why? The southern edge is soft." "You said the route was safe." "It is." "Then drive." "With the passenger crawler covered, I can't see its rear weight shift." Mavic's eyes narrowed. "Remove the covers." Nobody spoke. Removing it would expose the children. Mavic understood. The crew understood. The people waiting along the road understood. Mavic's control was collapsing one practical decision at a time. Drive blind, he ordered. The driver of the passenger crawler switched off his engine. Mavic spun. Started. The driver did not. I said started. No. The word was barely audible. Mavic walked toward him. The driver climbed down. We were supposed to collect ransom. We still will. No. Mavic raised his pistol. Another crew member stepped away from him. Then another. No dramatic rebellions. No speech. They simply began calculating. Big Sal could see it happening. The children were known. The route was watched. The launch field was closed to them. Their identities were spreading. The ransom was becoming less valuable every minute. Mavic pointed the weapon toward Big Sal. You caused this. No, Big Sal said. He looked at the waiting traders. You chose cargo everyone else values more than your payment. A low-engine note approached from the east. Mavic flinched. Big Sal looked toward the sound. A small civilian cargo crawler crossed the white flats. One vehicle. Not an army's. It stopped well outside weapon range. A human woman climbed down. Dark hair tied back. Dust coat. No armors. Behind her came 2 humans and 3 local aliens. The woman looked directly at the passenger crawler. I'm Imani Cross. Nobody answered. Her voice was controlled, but Big Sal saw her hands. They were shaking. We came for the children. Mavic grabbed the nearest child compartment latch. Big Sal moved. The pistol swung toward him. Mavic shouted, "Stay back." Big Sal stopped. The people on the road stopped too. Imani did not advance. I need to know if they're hurt. Mavic laughed. You need to make an offer. Imani looked at him. No. His smile returned. You think all these people make you powerful? Imani glanced around. The cook, the mechanic, the merchants, Kelvar, workers, travelers. People Big Sal doubted she even knew. I don't know most of them, she said. Something about the answer unsettled Mavic more than a threat would have. You expect me to believe this happened by accident? No. Then who organized it? Imani looked confused. Nobody's. Mavic's pistol lowered slightly. Big Sal almost laughed again. Imani took one careful step forward. I asked people to look. That is organization. I asked, and they obeyed. No, the human cook spoke from the roadside. She didn't ask me. The mechanic raised one hand. Or me. Kelvar said I don't know her. The greasy-handed human nodded toward the passenger crawler. I saw something strange. Mavic looked from face to face. For the first time since Big Sal had met him, he seemed unable to calculate the price of the room. Because there was no room. No negotiation table. No hierarchies. No single person holding the others together. The green-jacketed girl appeared at the small window gap. Ms. Cross. Imani's head snapped toward her. Everything changed in her face. Not strategy. Not victory. Relief so sharp it looked painful. I'm here. The girl started crying. So did the boy beside her. Mavic grabbed the door handle. Big Sal stepped between him and the crawler. The pistol rose again. This time Big Sal did not stop. Mavic's own driver caught his wrist. Another crew member took the weapons. Mavic stared at them. What are you doing? The driver removed the pistol magazine. Ending the job. You work for me. Not anymore. Mavic looked around wildly. I can pay double. Nobody answered. Triple. The driver tossed the magazine onto the ground. You can't get off the step. Mavic turned toward Big Sal. Big Sal opened the passenger door. The children did not rush out. For a moment they remained exactly as they had been since the beginning. Together, the girl in green still held the younger boy's sleeve. Then she saw Amani. Her hand opened. The younger boy ran first. The others followed. Amani did not look at Mavic. She did not look at Big Sal. She did not look at the people who had blocked the road. She crouched and checked the children one by one. Faces, hands, breathings, injuries, names. She counted them twice without saying the count aloud. Only when she was certain did she sit back on her heels. One child wrapped both arms around her neck. Amani closed her eyes. Nobody cheered. The steppe wind moved softly over the mineral flats. Big Sal felt the western tide release another fraction beneath his feet. Behind him, Mavic sat on the ground with his own crew standing away from him. His authority had disappeared so completely that nobody needed to announce it. Later, local officers would take him. There would be charges. Routes would close to his name. Captains would stop accepting his credit. People who once tolerated him because he was profitable would decide he no longer was. Big Sal found that ending more appropriate than violence. Amani approached him only after every child had water. You're Big Sal. Oh yes, they said you helped. He looked toward the children. I helped late, but you helped. Big Sal did not know what humans expected people to say to that. So he chose the truth. I thought someone important would come for them. Amani followed his gaze. Someone important did. Big Sal looked at her. She smiled faintly. Then she pointed around the crossing. Several of them. Big Sal understood. Not important because of rank. Important because they had noticed. The children boarded Amani's crawler as the next safe phase began. The girl in the green jacket climbed the steps last. Then she stopped. She looked back at Big Sal. Are you coming? He glanced behind himself. Local officers were speaking with the kidnapping crew. I have to stay. She considered that. Then nodded. Okay. She started inside, paused again, and added, thanks for telling them. The door closed. The crawler moved onto the western road. One by one, the other vehicles pulled aside. The fuel hauler. The merchant carts. Kelvar's machine. The mechanic's transport. The cook's borrowed skiff. A road that had seemed completely blocked became open in less than a minute. Big Sal stood beside the route marker and watched the human children disappear across the Nacre Steppe. No warship crossed the sky. No human soldiers marched over the ridge. No legendary parent arrived to punish anyone. The tide was exactly where Big Sal's body said it should be. The road behind the children stretched wide, empty, and perfectly safe beneath the copper evening. Once Big Sal would have looked at an empty road and believed nobody was there. He would never make that mistake again.